Stargazers. So today I just wanted to touch base real quick. We're heading into a full moon in Aquarius. Now, I haven't said a lot about Orbo's basket. Still probably not going to say a lot about it. But this full moon does absolutely connect Orbo's basket. But more specifically, the full moon is connecting Orbo's basket, or the two outer rims of the basket, by Pluto and Jupiter. And this, I think, is pretty significant. Also, at the same time, we have Saturn that just stationed retrograde today. As a matter of fact, while I'm doing this video, which is not actually a bad thing, because Saturn has gone retrograde on a very, very lucky degree, a very positive lucky degree. So the first thing is, let's talk about the full moon. Okay, in conjunction with and separate from Orbo's basket. So this full moon that we have that is happening will be sitting on Pluto. So we've got a full moon conjunct Pluto as we speak that's happening at the end of the month. And that can be an extremely intense full moon. We should be feeling it right now. So if things are kind of quietly humming along, you should be even more concerned. And I'm not saying any of this to drive anybody into a panic, but it is to say we want to be just a little more aware of our surroundings than usual. Because with this particular aspect, with that full moon in Aquarius conjuncting Pluto, and Saturn having just turned retrograde, there should be, in theory, there should be less incidences of, free-floating explosive outbursts like we've been seeing. There's been a lot of, well, I don't know. I was about to say there's been a lot of mass shootings, but this is the United States, and at this point, it seems to be a regular occurrence. So define like more mass shootings. But it is to say that typically with this particular type of quiet hum, it's like the silence before the storm, the calm before the storm. The more calm things seem, the more likely we are to have one singularly huge expression of this energy. So be aware of your surroundings. See something, say something, try not to piss people off. Ignore the yahoos and the pickup trucks. I don't know about where you live, but where I live, the guys in the pickup trucks around here, they're all typically angry. 80 to 90% of them are white guys, and they all drive like they own the road, and often, prior to now, had Trump stickers all over their trucks. So that tells you a lot, right? It's all about power and persecution. So, they're more obnoxious on the road than usual. And maybe more so under this full moon. So be aware, be aware. Try not to sit on your horn. Try not to be unnecessarily obnoxious. Just, take it with grace for the next week or so. Please, give them lots of space and take it with grace. Now, what's interesting about this full moon with Pluto is that the Orbo's basket, the two ends of the rim that make the basket, right? The two sides. We've got Pluto over here, and you've got Jupiter directly across from it, making the other end of the rim on the bowl. Jupiter is in Leo, okay? And Jupiter in Leo is also very much about power and dominion, right? So, we tend to think of Leo in very favorable terms. We think of Leo as very creative and loving and expressive, but Leo is still a fire sign. Jupiter is also a fire planet. And both of these have a lot to do with expanding their territory, right? You've never seen Leos that don't dominate the environment when they walk in. They can't help themselves. It's not like, for some of them, it might be a malicious, deliberate thing, but for the most part, even with the healthiest of Leos, they can't help themselves. They will literally imprint the environment with their energy and their presence, because that's just the way they're built. And, if they're raised well and they've got good character, they know how to use that generously and graciously, in ways that are helpful to the group, as a whole. But there are always those people who just, I don't know who raised them. I don't know who raised them. So there's that. And Jupiter, of course, is about expanding everything it comes in contact with. So Jupiter and Leo together will definitely make a domineering, expansive type of energy that kind of forgets that they're not the only people making decisions around here. This, in combination with that Pluto opposition and the full moon, is absolutely going to bring to light the people who are the most power hungry and the most actively and irrationally looking for excuses to take power. As if we haven't seen enough of that already. Now, the reason I'm mentioning this is because this also applies for personal lives. And again, give them space, give them grace, keep your distance. We just have to get through the few days around this full moon and let this play itself out. We don't need to be, a victim to somebody else's stupidity. So there's that. Now, how this applies to Barbeau's basket is kind of interesting. Because remember, with Barbeau's basket, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, the Barbeau's basket has a lot more to do with social evolution, right? So it's kind of hard to put it in the framework of an individual natal chart in terms of forecasting for the month ahead or whatever, because, it's not, it's like trying to take something very, very large and put it in something very, very small. So trying to put an adult foot in a Barbie shoe, like a Barbie doll shoe. So my feeling is that the Barbeau's basket has a lot to do with evolution and social, development and all that sort of stuff, mass psychology. So, and we've been on this evolutionary train for a while. We have been doing this for a while. This doesn't happen overnight. You don't turn a ship in the ocean instantly, and you don't evolve overnight. It took thousands of years for those dinosaurs to die off, right? And it's, with every great turning point in history, it took hundreds of years, oftentimes, for the things to turn and finally settle into what the new incarnation of that society is going to be. Now, there may be points along the way where we can pinpoint, like that was a turning point, or this is a time marker on the timeline, kind of thing. But ultimately, it doesn't matter what these little moments mean. What matters is how it shakes out in the end, right? So we're definitely hitting that. And I think this is what the Barbeau's basket is showing us. Now, with the Barbeau's basket, one of the things that's happening is we're getting a lot of outer planets involved. Again, mass consciousness and evolution, right? So for those of you, by the way, who are, Christian, evangelical, nationalists, and don't believe in any of this stuff, I don't know why you're on the channel in the first place, but you can go because it's not going to get any better from here. So with Jupiter and Pluto, what we have inside the bowl that they're holding together is Uranus and Neptune, both of which absolutely, and also Saturn, but Uranus and Neptune specifically, which are outer planets, which have a lot to do with mass social consciousness. Okay. So this full moon is really going to crack open the egg, as it were, maybe drive home a point. So it will be interesting to see what events unfold at this time. Now, the thing to remember is that because Pluto's involved, it may not be as obvious as we'd like it to be, right? Because Pluto's very subtle. So keep an eye out for things and just make mental notes because we may need to refer back to it. And, later we're going to go, and then it'll make sense. Okay. So in your personal life, what this also means is that this is a call to action to reach for, to aspire to be, to find your higher self, your divine self. I mean, many of us for a long time now have been trying to turn to more divinely inspired anything just to keep our wits about us as we get through this. So this is not sudden or new for a lot of us. But right now, with this particular full moon, with this Jupiter-Pluto opposition that holds the bowl together, containing Uranus and Neptune, this is absolutely the time when the evolutionary demand that will serve us best has a lot to do with getting in touch with our divine nature, right? All the Christ consciousness and all the good stuff that comes with the good books, whatever your personal, practice, religion, spirituality is. So getting a bird's eye view of humanity and your life, and your evolutionary path, above and beyond the immediate, right here in front of you kind of thing, it's going to make a huge difference in terms of what kind of fruit you yield from this when this is all over and done with. So my recommendation, would definitely be to get in there and do some mind expanding work. No magic mushrooms, please. Okay, now I was also looking at some asteroids for the end of this month. Now what's interesting is in May, we saw a big thing in May. And again, I honestly thought that man would be frog marched out of office, but instead we got everyone and their brother talking about, his imminent death instead of acting like it didn't happen. And of course, we also got Mitch McConnell, who is dead, and everybody's pretending that he's not. So literally we're living our own version of Weekend at Bernie's, the movie. So I looked at the asteroids for the month of May, and I'm like, well, is there anything interesting going on here? Well, Chiron, went into Taurus at the very, very end of April. No, I'm sorry. It went into Taurus at the very end of May. And in the month of June, Chiron was in Taurus. So with that said, Chiron in Taurus is very much about, your values, right? Your value systems, things that are important to you, what really matters in life. How much money do you actually need to make to live comfortably and happily? Which is more important, profits or people in your lives? So we've got a lot of that going on. We'll be dealing with a lot more of that as time continues, because this Chiron in Taurus is going to be there a while, and it's definitely going to challenge our values, which is good. We needed a challenge. We've gotten really comfortable out here. We've gotten so comfortable and so complacent that we're actually stupid at this point, which isn't good. It is not good. Okay, so we're at the end of July, heading into August. Now, in August, we do have Juno backing up into Capricorn. Juno is a social asteroid. It has everything to do with society and communities, and family. So it's not just the immediate family in our domestic environments, it's our communities, right, and our society. So Juno backing up into Capricorn is really going to have us revisiting some stuff, because it's backing into Capricorn away from Aquarius, which tends to be a lot more impersonal, right? So like the difference between a computer programmer versus AI, they'll both get the job done, but only one involves a human and, human decency. So Juno will enter Capricorn, and as it is doing that, it will also be making a quincunx to Sappho. We're not really going to use that very much. Definitely a square to Vesta and Pallas. Now, Vesta has a lot to do. In fact, this is interesting. So Juno has to do with community, right, and the family on a big social sense. And Vesta has a lot to do with justice, okay? Justice and education and wisdom. Now, Juno squaring Vesta in the month of August should indicate some heightened awareness of these things. So it'll really bring them to the forefront and force us to deal with these things, in a very conscious, deliberate way. So it may feel like conflict, but it's actually going to be very, very good. The way we navigate this in our personal life is we understand that the things that we're having issues with, between family, what we think we should be doing for family or community versus what is right, may not always be comfortable conversations. And the more, what is what I'm looking for? The more polarized, opposite end we get with this, because it's, right or wrong, black or white, yes or no, the more that's happened, the less likely we are to see the actual truth and the way through this. So there's, it's not as much compromise as much as a deeper level of understanding that allows us to incorporate all of these things into our lives. So try not to fall, in the month of August, try not to fall into black-white thinking, where it's one extreme or the other, and just take a step back and understand there's more involved here. But in order for us to find those truths, we have to be a lot less hard-headed. Okay, so month of August. Here's what we got on tap for the month of August. Really quick. Yes, hello. Hello, beautiful. Sorry, it's my dog. Yes. We're going to go in a second. All right. So in the month of August, we will have some more pleasant things happening. So the first thing is Mars will leave contentious Gemini. And listen, I give Geminis and Aries a hard time all the time for, I think, very good reasons. But in terms of transit stuff, Mars, anything in Gemini, especially Mars and Gemini, can be really difficult to deal with because Mars is all, sound and fury, right? A lot of words, a lot of talking, a lot of changing your mind, a lot of chaos, right? And Mars will finally be leaving Gemini in the middle of the month, around the 13th. So we can expect some of the dust to settle, right? And a lot of the shit stirrers in our worlds to calm down and lose a lot of the power and influence that they've had for over a month now. Because literally Mars in Gemini is the sign of their placement of the shit stirrer, somebody who's constantly stirring a pot, for other people, troublemakers. So there's that. Now Jupiter will have moved into, or has moved into Leo, which is a really nice place. But again, Jupiter in Leo is not just about love and creativity. It's also about dominion and expansion of power. So be aware of that when you see it in other people, and give them a wide berth if you can. Jupiter will be moving into a trine with Saturn, so some semblance of wisdom, and decency and common sense, all those things that are good in terms of holding a family and a community together, will come to the forefront and solidify by the middle to the end of August. We're not quite there yet, but we'll get there, and that's good, right? So we'll have something to rein in the temptations of Jupiter and Leo, trying to take over everything, taking over the entire room when they walk in. Uranus remains in Gemini, so we're still going to be dealing with that AI stuff and all this, deep fakes and all this weirdness, because Gemini is the sign of the copycat, the duplicate, the carbon copy, and words, and that will be there for a long time. So we are in a whole different place right now in the world, and we are going to have to learn how to navigate that. So, but it's there, and this is just more of what we're dealing with. And Uranus and Gemini, unfortunately, is still supported by Neptune and Pluto. So there's a lot of ease that's happening with any efforts in those directions. So if you don't like AI, if you don't like these AI data centers showing up, if you don't like what this is doing to your community, you're going to have to actively speak up and participate, because it will not go away on its own. Left to its own devices, it will move smoothly without any interference. You're going to have to get in and disrupt that forward motion. That's the only way you're going to stop it, because the planets are supporting the smooth transition of these things, which isn't to say that it's absolutely imminent and it's going to go through no matter what. It is to say that if you don't like it, you're going to have to make an effort. You're going to have to make an effort. Venus will move into Libra about the second week of August. So we should have some really nice social times coming towards the end of August. So we're looking at having a really nice end of summer, which I think we could all use a break, like little moments of peace and happiness and, comfort and love, friendliness. So that will be good. Mercury, of course, is moving very quickly. It's going to go through 3 signs this month. Cancer, Leo, Virgo. And towards the end of the month, it's when the cleanup crew will show up, because Mercury will be in its own sign of Virgo. But until then, just enjoy what's left of summer, and what we can do with it. And let's see, that's pretty much the upshot. If you have any questions, you can leave a comment in the comment section. I just wanted to touch base about this with that Borbos basket and this full moon coming up. So again, just be aware and be gracious. Be gracious, because it's very much this Jupiter in Leo, Pluto in Aquarius with a full moon on top of it's as part of Borbos basket on a very personal level. What we can see, whether people realize they're doing it or not, is a lot of impetuous or irrational power grabs. The desire to expand their territory or domination, in any environment they're in, whether it's the family unit, the living room, or the remote control, or on a global scale with the government. So we got to figure out how to work with these types of personalities in ways that are productive, and get the job done, as opposed to getting ourselves hurt. And again, the AI stuff is all being supported as we move forward. It's very slick, very easy for it to move forward. So if we don't like it, we're going to have to actively participate in the disruption of it, because if you ignore it and you assume that somebody else will take care of it, it's going to grow and grow and grow and grow, until it just becomes too big to deal with entirely, and it will take over like a cancer. So that's that. All right. Hope this helps. Talk to you guys soon. Bye.